All right, we are live too as Ian Mackay just joined this group. Welcome, Ian. That is too much. Wowie, wow. Can you hear us, Ian?
Wow.
Ian's not necessarily talking. If you unmute, open the.
He's logging in.
There he is.
Oh,
Look at that.
Ian.
Woo! All right, if we can get Mark Newton, we have a quorum. We're gonna go. Well, let's just go now, man. This is so great. This is my every kind of junior high school fantasy right here. Thank you all. I'm so unbelievably thrilled and happy to have you all. We can talk about the glorious 930 Club, which is celebrating its 40th year this year. Pretty astonishing. I think as we were talking on the warm-up here, we all just said, it's impossible for that to happen. Like to have a 199 capacity club and be an independent venue in this day and age and somehow make that happen for 40 years is just, it's incredibly improbable. Something we'd never thought we'd see. And for Pollstar, the crazy part too is 930 is like for venues under 2,000, it's #1 every year. It has more shows and sells more tickets than any other club out there. So hats off to 930 and the team that's here. Yeah. Let me do some quick introductions, if I may. We are so blessed to have Trouble Funk's Big Tony right here, straight out of Brandywine, Maryland, leader of Trouble Funk, the greatest go-go band ever in the history of the world. I defy you to go to a Trouble Funk show and not dance. Good luck with that. Thank you for being here, Tony, for real. Well, we don't. Oh, Mark Noon. Oh my God, it's getting better. Mark Noon, we see your background. Are you there?
Everybody, for some reason, I just got a picture of me there. I don't know why you.
Wow, the picture's great. We'll take that. We'll take any Mark Noon we can get. This was my favorite band growing up, for sure. The Slicky Boys. They blew me away. They were doing garage rock, psychedelic noise, just brilliant surf shit. Excuse my language. Way back in '76, right?
Yeah, thanks.
76.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Trouble Funk was '76 too, right? I think so. You guys all go back 70s. We're going to talk about the 70s because that was actually a very important decade. I did not expect Ian Mackay to be on here, but I'm so thankful you are here. He is an icon, American hero. We are so blessed he is here. Ian, really, thank you.
5 minutes. I got practice. I'm going downstairs to play music right now.
Just talk about the Sahara.
That's for real. I actually left practice to come up here and have this quick chat and say hello. Just would like to acknowledge the 40 years of service on the behalf of the 930 Club. It's an important venue, a place that has seen an incredible amount of shows that have then went on to spur 1 million other shows and 1,000 million other bands. So it's certainly an important place. And I'm very happy to have been my first show there was in June of 1980, I think. I saw the Bad Brains there on June 4th or July 4th of 1980, and have essentially lived down there ever since. So I appreciate you all inviting me along. I'll stick on for just a couple minutes and I have to go back to work and play music. So that's what I'm doing today.
Thank you for being here. Well, I want to talk about the Sahara skateboard team after this, okay?
Well, you have to give me a call separately, but I'll be happy to talk to you about that.
All right, cool. And then there's a guy here, I think he's in a band, Brain Damage or something. They were real, I think, and we're so glad to have you because huge Brain Damage fan. And really, and we all know what a supporter you are, and it is phenomenal that you are here. So thank you, Mr. Grohl, for showing up.
My pleasure.
Yeah. All right, cool. Then I want to go through some of the 930 Club peeps who are on the call. Donna Westmoreland, IMP COO. She went to the 930 in the fall of 1980 because some cute boy said, you want to go see a British ska band.
Correct. And it ended up being Black Market Baby. So
it was Black Market Baby, which is cooler than a British ska band.
He lured me in with the ska, and there it was.
And your favorite show at the 930, the old school, was Ein Sturgeon Naubauten, which I'll never say accurately, but that is even cooler, maybe.
I was there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Dodie pulled the plug as they tried to saw the pillar down. That was incredible.
Only saw that pillar down, man. You could never.
The guy was making sparks with the power saw, and then he suddenly lifted up the thing and started going for the pole, and it just turned off. And I saw Dodie over by the wall just holding the cord. She knew it was coming.
Dodie was the co-founder, for those who don't know, with John
Bowers.
Bowers.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have some newer school folks here too, which we are blessed to have. Kareem Karifa, who is the assistant GM at 930 currently, was working crowd control management and is a rapper. So we are so glad you are here. Thank you, Kareem. We also have Jen Haas, who's the talent buyer currently at 930. She's been there about 3 years. She worked at Red Light Management for a while. She worked at the Moody Theater in Austin City Limits Live. Correct?
Yeah, ACL Live right when it opened up.
Right, so welcome. So glad you were here too.
Thank you.
Last but not least, in any possible way, the talking mime. That is Seth Hurwitz, as he was lovingly called before, who without him, none of this would have happened. It would not be where it was. It would not have gone 40 years. So thank you, Seth. We all owe a lot of this to you.
Does that mean I'm, oh God.
You're old, man.
Yeah.
This is not possible.
It is very possible. This is like a birthday party. So
we did like the 30th anniversary show.
But look at, we're here at 40. It's going to be 50 before we even know it. So I want to talk a bit about DC, because I grew up there and I remember so many things about sort of there was a point in DC when it went from like Skinnerd and Ted Nugent and Yes and Boston and skateboarding and just kind of a classic rock thing into punk rock. There was this transition where suddenly like it was the Ramones, the Cramps, the Sex Pistols, the Teen Idols, all this, just this like, it felt like fervent in the streets. There was something going on, and DC was kind of the perfect place for this because we had radio, we had WHFS, where Seth worked in high school, correct, Seth?
That's true.
Yep, and we had media, we had City Paper, we had Unicorn Times, we had media like that. We had record stores. Thank God we had record stores, right?
Yeah.
Ken Mel,
I worked at Record Lords. And
Yesterday and Today, right? What else, Ian? You know.
Douglas Records.
There
Douglas,
you go.
The Wiz.
The Wiz. I mean,
Yeah. Vinyl Link, Joe's Record Paradise,
Vinyl Link.
Record Convergence,
EJ Corvettes,
Orpheus.
Yeah. So we had this kind of culture that was already there blossoming, and then we had the friggin' 80s when Reagan was president, and we're not going to get partisan here, but Jesus, it was quite a time, and there was really like a lot of political activism, and things were moving, and people were.
He doesn't seem so bad now, does he?
Not at all. Not at all.
But out of that came this really like unbelievable culture that flourished in DC, and I want to talk to some of the old school heads here, which is all of us kind of, but about how that transition happened, like what was going on then that kind of made the way for the 930 Club to kind of open up.
So Andy, are you directing that at me?
I think so. Thank you, Mark.
You know, one radio station that you overlooked or forgot to mention was WGTB. That was Georgetown University.
Georgetown Radio, yeah.
That was a great station. That like changed an awful lot of people's view on music. You know, that's where I first heard the Ramones, you know, and the Cramps and Roxy Music, a lot of stuff like Eno. You know, you listen to HFS at night and they're playing like Eno and Fripp, like it's 45 minutes of just that droning Fripp and Eno's burps and Fripp's feedback, you know, but that was like great stuff. And because of GTB, I heard about the Cramps at the Hall of Nations show.
That was my first show.
Was it really?
That was important. The Cramps,
that was
my
really,
God.
that was
the Urban Verbs opened.
Yeah, that was a huge event. That was a really big event. I was there. It was it was oversold. And I can remember standing underneath the window, like people were climbing in the windows. I was like grabbing their feet and letting them down, you know, did that for a while till my shoulders started to hurt. That was really quite a night. And that really made a huge difference in a lot of people's view on music.
I was on GTB after I was on HFS. It was at Georgetown University, and nobody on the radio station went to Georgetown.
Oh, yeah, right.
The Jesuit priests figured this out at some point.
I got to go.
Oh, you got to go. Ian, any
Sorry,
thoughts
man.
on that?
I'd be happy to, but I love you guys all. Happy birthday, 930. And regards to everybody I know up there. I know everybody, I think. So I'll
Take
see you
care.
all around the way.
Bye.
All right,
Thank
later,
you,
Representative
Ian.
Ian. You know what's cool about Ian was he was on a skateboard team. Like he really was. Like skateboarding was a big thing. Like kids just out on the street skating all the time.
Well, so here, let's go back. Ian and I talk about this all the time. When I was in high school and got out of high school, I was working at a gas station in Ian's neighborhood at Calvert, Wisconsin, and Calvert. And I can remember seeing Ian just skateboarding down the street all the time, you know, because I'd kind of talked to his sisters a couple of times, Kate a couple of times, and I realized it. And then there was another guy who looked just like Ian. Oh, wait a minute, I bet that's his brother, you know. And Ian was a total skater, and I could see. And then later on, I worked at the gas station again, and I had a lot of friends that lived in Glover Park. And then it was like Ian and Henry skating around.
Henry was skating. I was going to say,
yeah.
Well, let me tell you about Ian. So Ian was a runner for us for our concerts for a long time, actually. And
running from the rats, was that what he was doing?
At the big shows, you know, he'd ice down beer and stuff, and everyone, you know, these big acts would come and say, "Isn't that Ian MacKaye? Wow, what's he doing here?" I'm like, "He's, you know, filling your dressing room up." And they would like sometimes Ian would disappear. We're like, "We need to get more beer, you know, fill up, you know, the catering." And where is he? And like, well, we can't bother him now because he's sitting down with Michael Stipe. They're having their, you know, cross-legged little hippie rap. So, really, and you know, we couldn't disturb that. So,
hey, Big Tony.
Hey.
I want to hear about what was going on in the '70s, and you were in South. You started in Northwest, then you moved to Southeast later. What was going on in DC back then, as far back as you can go in the '70s, in terms of music and culture and what you were doing?
Well, man, I mean, you know, when I got with Trouble, it was Trouble Band and Show, and I was living over in the projects in Southeast. I got with Trouble in '77. Trouble Band and Show in '77. Trouble was top 40 R&B cabaret group. Yeah, and I was playing with another group called 8000 BC before then. So,
hey, what about was Chuck Brown coming up then?
Well, that's what I was getting at. It's like we actually started opening up for Chuck Brown in '77 at the Club LeBurn, and again, it wasn't Trouble Funk. We was just a top 40 group, and that was my first go-go experience when I saw Chuck at the Club LeBurn. And when I seen it, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It was a totally different scene. It was like, and back then it wasn't a go-go music. It was go-go back then was just it was a place to be. It was an atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where you going tonight? Oh, I'm going to the go-go to see Chuck Brown and Soul Surf.
Where'd you going to go? To the go-go. Where'd you going to go to the go-go?
So first came the go-go atmosphere, just the place to be. You know what I'm saying? And then Chuck created that beat, called it the go-go beat, which was something that he used, was a tool that he used to kind of keep the music, because his idea of losing the crowd. You know what I'm saying? So when you stop, it's like it's hard to get them back. So, you know.
Was there like street parties and stuff, the way kind of people talk about New York with go-go music and the part? Like there used to be Fort Reno and Northwest where people would go and hang out and hear music, but I think the same stuff was going on all over the city.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was plenty of street parties. I mean, you know, when I was coming up, there was a lot of block parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know. And when Trouble Funk came on the scene, it's like the little house parties was the thing back then. You know? Yeah, the house parties was the thing back then, and I think the timing was just perfect for us, because when we created that masterpiece called Trouble Funk, Straight Up Funk Go-Go Style, it was like you could not have a party without it. You know what I'm saying? So the DJs, that was like the DJ's favorite thing to play, because they could put that thing on, man, and go take a cigarette break, eat some food, get on the dance floor, you know, and entertain themselves. You know? So
there ain't no party like a Trouble Funk party.
No
good, man.
Yeah, I used to have these 12-inch, a bunch of these 12-inch, you know, Trouble and Trouble Funk things. There's just like one side was one long song. Those things were great.
Exactly. Yeah.
I still have some of them somewhere.
But this is what I love about DC too, is just like we were listening to everything. You know, already on this call, we talked about Einstein Neubauten and Brian Eno and Trouble and Chuck Brown. And it's just, there was such a great mixture of hodgepodge of music. And I think that's the way a lot of kids listen to music today too. But we were doing it super early, and we found it on the radio stations you guys mentioned and the shows we went to and going to the parks. Like Fort Reno was crazy in DC.
You know, another thing that we used to do a lot, like when I was in high school, I graduated from Gonzaga in '73. And there was a guy in my class named Marshall Keys, who was a sax player. And he was in this band called, a bunch of brothers, it was called Smoke. It was a great band. And they were kind of jazz and funk and kind of top 40 and so they would play at these outdoor things in the mobile band shell. Remember those? They still have them. You still see them.
What do they call it? I remember that.
Yeah, but those things were everywhere. That would be a thing. We'd find out where they were and we'd go see them. There's all kinds of different kinds of bands, you know, all kinds of like, you know, a bunch of white kids, teenage kids doing, you know, making noise, and then and other good bands and crappy bands and all kinds. We would just go to see live music.
But see, the common thread here, the recurring theme here is alternative. So we all wanted alternative. We wanted something that
new,
took us up, you know, that was different, that like challenged us.
Well, that's
something I don't remember.
You know,
I don't really have that anymore. You know,
Skinner and Ted Nugent were great. Like no offense, but it was so inaccessible. You're gonna have to go to the Cap Center if you wanted to go see them, right? And if you're in a band, you know, good luck playing Ted Nugent and Skinner well, even though we tried to at our talent show. But this was just like, we just took control. It was like, this is our music. We can play wherever the hell we want. I think one of the first places I went was Madam's Organ. That was a squat. It was just a squat. That was crazy. It was dangerous squat, you know. And 930F, 930 was close to a squat as well. Let's get to 930. So 930 opens up. It's 1980. It's Dodie and John. They're very art-minded, right? Like this wasn't just like, it was actually pretty highfalutin in some ways, and then also super underground. They had people like Liquid, the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Klaus Nomi, Lydia Lunch. Like it was kind of super outro stuff that it was New York, actually, a lot of what it was. And they do installations. Like it wasn't actually like, it had local stuff from the start though, right? Tiny Desk Unit opened up with the Lounge Lizards and John Lurie. So it had that, first day it had its first local thing going, right? And then
you know who opened that show was Tiny Desk Unit. And
Tiny Desk Unit.
You know was in Tiny Desk Unit?
Yeah, our NPR boy, Bob Boylan.
Bob Boylan.
Yeah. So Seth, this is where you come in. You've been, you were promoting shows in DC. You were doing really cool stuff. You had the Cramps, but they couldn't play Ontario Theater, and you brought in Tex Rabinowitz. How cool is that? They
canceled a week out because the guitar player, Brian Gregory, had a voice from the devil or something that said no. So we brought in Tex Rabinowitz and Mark down here on the screen, Brady Bunch here. He played our first show ever as a promoter.
That's right.
That's right. So we did that show, and we had the premiere of the punk rock movie. The Ontario was a movie theater, the Ontario Theater. So our thing was to do movies and concerts together. But we had to do small bands that were not big enough for that. So Dodie had opened the 930. And, you know, we all knew each other, and we arranged to do a show there. Our first show there was the Flesh Tones, who were still playing.
Oh, yeah.
We're still playing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then we started doing shows there. So that's how that started. I didn't actually start the 930, but we did shows in 1980.
I did not know that.
So
good history right there.
Do you think any less of me now, Tony?
No, absolutely not, man. You're still the mastermind, though.
Now, the first time I promoted Trouble Funk, we were looking for an opener for Nina Hagen at the Warner Theater, and I saw the punk kids had put Trouble Funk on some of their shows. I thought, well, that's right. Wild. We need to do something wild. I don't know. I'd never seen them. We put them on, and I have to correct you, Andy. They're not just the best go-go band, one of the best. They are one of the best bands ever. People ask me, so who's your favorite band? I always say Trouble Funk is one of the best bands ever, I swear to God. Not just because Tony is in this little corner here, but they really are great.
But then also
Really
brain
great.
damage, I think, is probably number 2. I think if we're gonna, because they were signed to Fart Blossom, I think, if I'm
Overrated. Overrated.
Is that right?
Absolutely. No
Were they
question.
signed to Fart Blossom? Do you know, Dave?
Yes, it was Fart Blossom Records, actually. And it's funny. You know how I got that record deal?
Please.
I was 16 years old, and my band was playing a show at the 930 Club, and I was playing the drums. There was a band from Richmond called Honor Roll, and we were opening up for this band Honor Roll. This other drummer, who was a drummer hero of mine, a guy named Reed Mullins, as we're sound checking, he comes up, and I had ripped off everything I knew from this guy. He was in a band called Corrosion of Conformity. I just took all his licks, and he was there at sound check watching me like, who's this kid ripping off all my shits? Like, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Dave, and I'm from Springfield, Virginia. And he put me in touch with his buddy who had a record company called Fart Blossom, and I made my first record.
Fart Blossom!
Magic happens at the 930 Club.
Man, could everybody just scream Fart Blossom real quick?
No.
What a name. What a
So
name.
Dave, you're from Springfield, Virginia, man. You're in the boonies out there. Like, that's like Northern Virginia, a lot of military contractors. Like, how did you get sucked into the vortex of the 930 goodness?
So I have cousins that live in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, like within Chicago. And we would go up there every summer to visit and drive from Springfield all the way up to Chicago and spend a couple weeks. And so one year I go there, and my cousin Tracy, who's a few years older than me, had discovered punk rock. So when we opened up the door, she had like bondage pants and an Andy Pasty t-shirt, and she had shaved her head, and I'd only seen that shit on like Chips and Quincy, I'm like, oh my god, it's real. And so I was immediately just blown away. She was like a superhero. So she takes me upstairs. At this point, it was 1983. She had or 82, she had this incredible record collection. And I'm going through all of these records, mostly singles, and I'm going through them all, and hardcore punk rock stuff. And I started to notice that a lot of the bands that she had in her collection were from Washington, D.C. And I had no fucking clue that there were so many underground punk rock bands in D.C. She had pretty much all the Discord stuff at that point. But it was, and I found a Scream record. I'm like, oh my God, that's Falls Church. That's like 4 miles from my fucking house. There's a punk rock band somewhere. And so when I came home from that trip, I immediately went to, what was the record store on Wisconsin, Records and Tapes?
Oh,
what
yeah.
was it?
Tape traders.
Was that what it was? And so I
I
just went, and they had that little section in the back that was like punk rock records and then local stuff. And I just kind of started buying everything. And soon after that, there was the Rock Against Reagan show on the mall on the 4th of July.
Yep.
And that was Dead Kennedys and everybody. There was 18 bands outside on the 4th of July. And I went down to that. And from that day on, I was like, okay, well, this is the first day of the rest of my life. This is what I want to do, and this is who I want to be. And so it wasn't long before I wound up going to see shows, at the Wilson Center and at the 930 Club and places like that. And, being from Springfield, Virginia, there weren't I was the only punk rock kid other than the Scream guys in Falls Church. There was just nothing happening where I was from. And so I would go to these shows and I would meet people. And like that band Dame Bramage, I met those guys at a show outside of the Wilson Center, and I met a lot of my friends and discovered a lot about music in the hallway of the 930 Club. And that was one of the things, in this whole conversation about smaller clubs and smaller venues and trying to save them, these communities grow from those places. People get together and they listen to music together, they experience it together, it becomes a community. And in that, beautiful things happen. That's why I think Washington, D.C. is so special, because the music community was tight, and everyone was in it to help each other. And all the bands were diverse and cool, but I don't think anybody was expecting to become the biggest band in the world. It was just like, hey, let's go to Fort Reno this weekend and do that. And, oh my God, Trouble Funk's playing, and man, you know, and but it was all about the community, and that's what I got off on the most. I was like, it's so. When I talk to someone like Pat Smear, our guitar player, he tells me stories about Los Angeles in the 70s, in the mid to late 70s. And it's just like, they were all like stabbing each other and like killing each other and shit.
Yeah. The police shut the LA scene down, man. The police would shut DC. We could do anything. There was no law.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was a young buck. I was a little teenager when I started going to the 930 Club and seeing shows. I don't even know how many shows I saw there.
Yeah. We were the murder capital of the world for a while.
That's true.
That was part of it though, too. You know, like you could just go to, 930 F Street was a rough area. You know, you just didn't, what was there? Wig shops, food, Chinese place called Food. And what else? Like, it was just,
but we did have,
you would make that walk from 930 Club to DC Space, and then 930 Club
that was
to DC Space, 930 Club to DC Space.
And we did have people, you could pay to watch the car, okay? We did it.
At 14 years old, I'm like running like a mouse in the kitchen. I'm a rat in the kitchen just trying to get to DC Space to see what's going on. And then,
But the truth was, it was actually pretty safe, right? Like I parked there. I never had any trouble. There was no problems at all.
Yeah, I never had any issues. I did the running back and forth thing all the time. Never had any issues. But one thing that Dave was talking about the hall, there was like some kind of a meeting place in the hall.
Yeah.
A lot of times you just go hang out in the hall. But also another thing about the community, that the whole 930 community, that was a really important aspect. And just a quick little story. I teach at a music store on Wisconsin Avenue called Middle C Music. One day I'm teaching there, and they've got these glass doors. And there's this guy standing outside the door. I look at him, and there's Roddy France. And I hadn't seen Roddy, 2 or 3 years.
Oh, he's Urban Verbs.
So Roddy and I, big hugs, we're talking, and I introduced him to the people at the store, and then he leaves. And I said, that guy was like, the art rock front man for the biggest art rock band in DC. And we were like really friends. And they were like, weren't you guys competing? Like, no, not at all. Like, we would get each other gigs. If I couldn't do a gig, I'd call him, or, there was definitely we're all trying to help each other out here. We're all kind of like, we're not losers, but we got our own little thing, and I got to help each other,
I got the best quote here from Roddy. It was in the Washington Post. He said, I know for a fact the Verb got 800 people in there. We're talking about 199. On occasion.
We didn't want to exclude anyone.
Saw the receipt. So like, there was no law. You could do anything in that space.
Yeah, Seth, who was the fire marshal? Did that guy ever come to the 930?
I gotta look up the name on the checks. I don't know.
So then it says, Henry Rollins used to sneak through the back door. Our roadie would let him in because he knew him from high school. He let Dave Grohl in too when he was some 15-year-old kid. I would have been nicer to him if I knew who he was going to be.
But there was once actually, I can't remember, the 10,000 Maniacs were playing. And the bass player screamed, Skeeter, he and I would just go down, no money. We just like go down to the 930 Club and just go hang out to see what's going on down there. And so we went once. Somehow we got into the show, and we wanted to smoke a joint. So we went downstairs to the dressing room.
Oh my God!
To get high, just to find somewhere.
Now. I didn't hear that.
And then, we got kicked out of the 10,000 Maniacs kicked us out of the dressing room for smoking a joint. And I was like, I thought you guys were cool.
Yeah. You haven't met Natalie.
I did. I think she's the one that kicked us out. I'm not sure.
Well, that's one thing I think that was made the club so popular versus the Bayou is even though there was like management there at 930, it was invisible. I mean, you were on your own. There was, there was the bartenders, which was staff, but there was never, and same even with the new club, I never feel like there's any form of hovering management. Whereas at the Bayou, they had everything but Nazi armbands on. They were like, they were the worst. But
you see the road ducks at the Bayou.
So we have to talk. Well, Dave, let me know before you go, because I want to touch on the Neva and the club stuff before you split. But let's not have it be the last thing you do before. I know you have to go early. Sure. But I want to talk a bit about what a shithole the 930 Club was. Like, it was a next level shithole. It was disgusting. There were rats. I think, Donna, didn't you talk about leaving a packet of
duck sauce
on your desk?
lunch from food, you know, it's like you work the night before, you're hungover in the day, you get bad Chinese food for lunch, and you know, while you're advancing shows or crossing out, putting fresh pizza, homemade pizza with fresh toppings on a contract, and then you leave. Yes.
We used to say nothing is better than our pizza.
Yes. Yes. So then you leave the office, you forget that you've got a packet of duck sauce left over, and you come in the morning and the thing had been decimated, and there's some rat droppings right next to it. You know, it's like that was just par for the course. And I would have this big chain of keys that I would walk around in the basement, because the basement of the 930 Club is where the dressings were and the offices were. No air. It was before anybody banned smoking or anything. So the combination of smoke and rat and then the bands got to eat their homemade pizza down there.
Oh my God.
But you'd walk along and there were cages, you know, the liquor was locked up. And so there were cages to go through. And so I had all these keys and I'd walk through with the keys, just like making sure that the rats would scatter before I approached them too closely.
Oh man, those rats was gangster back then.
I still have corner of the eye PTSD, like to this day. If there's a movement over there, I can totally do a good quick.
But it never stops anyone from playing there. That's the thing.
No.
There was some band. Never stopped me from playing there.
Talk about Will Smith and the Fresh Prince and what happened, Seth.
Oh my God.
Well, you know, people either got why they were playing there or they didn't, you know, so we would get a hold of bands that were maybe thinking about playing the Bayou and say, you know, that place is not cool at all, but we're the cool place. And yeah, we had rats, okay, and it smelled and all that, but people got it. Some people didn't. So some bands would show up and go, you know, where's the club? Because it was in the corner and didn't, you know, until there were people in there, it didn't really look like a club. Didn't realize. So we didn't really have bands actually like show up and leave, except Will Smith.
Fresh Prince. Not that fresh.
Yeah, he walks in. I never met him actually, but it was that band that had Funk Up the Jam. What was the name of that act?
Oh yeah.
What, the Pump Up the Jam?
Yeah, who did that?
Oh God.
It's called Mars, I think. They're called.
Come on.
Called Mars. Pump Up the Jam?
Yeah.
Pump Up the Jam. Pump
it
up.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were actually pretty good. It was a great record, but haven't heard from them. I'll think of that in my sleep tonight.
Technotronic.
Exactly. They were opening. So it was a great show. Sold out 2 shows in one night. You know, we used to have to do 2 shows in one night to make any kind of deal. If band wanted to make good money. That was the deal. 2 shows in one night. Bands hated that. Hated it. Anyway, Will Smith, I got a call, said, and he walked out. He was on his bus. And said, do you want to go on there and try to talk him into playing? I was like, no, fuck him.
He didn't even get a pizza? Got nothing?
Nothing.
Not fresh pizza?
No.
See, I always thought, listen, this is my theory. I have a theory about the pizza. My theory was that a band would always get a pizza so that the next time they came to town, if they had moved up from the smaller venues to somewhere bigger like Lisner or something like that, Seth would go to him and say like, come on guys, remember, I'm the guy that gave you that fucking pizza. Remember that pizza? And you would use that to leverage them to come back to another one of your venues.
Now we do the cupcakes.
Now it's the cupcakes.
Now it's the cupcakes, exactly.
There was some band we were talking to down in the dressing room and explaining that, you know, they asked about the rats and they hadn't seen any yet. And this is a true story. At that moment, a rat dropped from the pipe overhead into the pizza.
Oh. I mean, so, okay, enough about, it was disgusting. It was thoroughly.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Yes, you do. And there was a pillar in the middle of the friggin' floor. Like you could, there was no sight lines. It was $199. You couldn't even really fit that many people in there and they'd oversell it. Right?
Hey!
just to get into the bar, just to get to the bar was hard enough. And I mean, actually, so it was kind of a nightmare, but we loved it. It was our beautiful nightmare.
We loved it, man. It was a great atmosphere.
Yes.
I loved the atmosphere. Yeah.
It had atmosphere.
Yeah. You know, one thing if you like that I remember about it is when you show up for the sound check and you're the only ones in there. It's like the band is like, we're bringing our gear in, and there's like the only person there right now would be the house guy, whoever that was at the time. Is when you walk in there and it's like, how the place looks so small. It just looked tiny. But then when you're on stage and then or you go see Trouble or something like that and it's really packed, you know, the place looked huge. But when it's empty, it looked tiny. And it seemed like that pillar took up like a quarter of the space.
Big Tony, how did you ever fit your band on stage?
Yeah.
Carefully.
Yeah.
Very
I
carefully.
will tell you that not long ago, Will Smith wanted to come back and play the anthem. And again, I said, fuck him.
No, don't do that now. It's the Fresh Prince.
I remember
And
this.
Keanu did.
I remember
Keanu
this.
and his band did play their set. Their Dogstar did play there too.
We used to have George Clinton play. We
I
had
saw
all
that show, actually. I saw that Dogstar show.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah. So we went down in the dressing room and he was like, I'm Keanu. Hi. You know, they were god awful though. Oh,
Videotape every show there, Seth?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Listen, that's one of the things I remember the
those
most.
are classic.
There was a big
When I was a
nasty
kid,
girl.
I always wanted to be the guy in the bird's nest, man. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, that's the
Her
best
name
job
was
in the
Terry.
world.
She's still around. Terry Stubbs.
Terry Stubbs, yeah.
And
He
we
donated all of
did.
those tapes to the library.
Yeah.
Oh,
So those tapes got lost in a fire. This is true.
Oh, not another fire.
Every time.
I don't think it was a flood, but it was at somebody's house. Yeah.
Somebody made off with the tapes, so that was bad enough. And then that person, their house, I think it was a flood or fire, but they're actually gone. So that's a shame.
Wow.
And Terry had some, which she donated to the DC library.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sound like the Sugar Hill story when we got all our tapes.
Yeah.
But officially,
that was classic though. Those were some classic tapes.
You got your tapes back, and then the studio burned down, right? Wasn't that
No.
the story? I thought the tapes got burned.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah, the studio mysteriously just burnt up, you know, with all of the masters.
Mhm.
And
Like
that's
the Tiger King. You saw that.
Iceberg Slim, Arcade Funk. You had all those other pseudonyms. He was the first Prince. He had to make another band name to keep playing. Right?
Wow.
You told me that, right?
No. Yeah. We had that. We had to come up when we was in litigation. We was going to court with Sugar Hill, and we couldn't perform as Trouble Funk. We couldn't record as Trouble Funk until everything was over. So yeah, we had to come up with different names to keep on recording. Arcade Funk, Iceberg Slim, Hot Cold Sweat. That was all Trouble Funk. So we did what we had to do to keep eating.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
You put a little tattoo on your face, like a little, like, you know. So 930's going. It makes no money. This is also, you know, we're a trade. We talk about the live business a lot. It's a losing proposition having a 199 person club. Seth was a promoter there, and then you bought this money losing endeavor in '86, correct?
That's right. That's right. So we were promoters, and you know, you had to do bands when they were small if you wanted to do them when they were big. So the 930 was a total loss leader. I mean, back then this was a lot of money. If you kept the loss to $100,000 in a year, that was a good year. That was a lot of money back then. So, but it, you know, we made our money on the big shows. So, and Dodie sold it because she didn't do big shows, and then all she did was lose money. So, and that got to be all, you know, all this fun punk rock shows and everything. It was fun, but expensive. So
I think that's a really important point, Seth. It speaks to today and the club situation. It's good luck. You go start a club with 200-person club and see how you do, right? Like people who think it's easy or fun or just go ahead, let's start a club and we'll have bands and it'll be awesome and we'll play. It's not that. The business is just not that. And we're seeing it today.
it's an incredibly difficult business. I don't know how these people do it that are in the NEVA thing. God
Yeah,
bless them. I mean, I don't know how they do it, really.
I want to get to our illustrious NEVA executive committee member, Audrey Fix-Schaefer over there in the corner, who we haven't heard much from today. So happy you're here. You work with NEVA. It's really important, I think, as part of this conversation. And all of us, we're all just drooling over this club that was and is and still going and just mythological to a lot of us. But what's going on in the world now, and how can we help these clubs and you know, people out there in webland, like what can they do? Like what can we do?
Right. Well, I hate to come to a 40th anniversary party and be the Debbie Downer, but since you asked, as anybody who's probably watching this probably knows, is that the small and independent concert venue industry is on the precipice of a mass collapse. And it is that clear and it's that dire. And because when you're completely shuttered and you have no revenue and high overhead and no idea when you're going to get to reopen again, that's a recipe for bankruptcy, plain and simple, which is why we all came together for the very first time. I mean, there was no National Independent Venue Association in March when the pandemic hit. It formed in April because everybody was realizing we're going to all go under if we don't come together. So the idea that independent venues and independent, you know, people like Seth, who has built his place and has his fierce independent and just a staunch individualist. Well, that's what it takes to survive in normal times. And this country is filled with venues like that, but knowing that there's no amount of history that will save you at a time like this. So we have to work really hard. And if I could take a second to thank Dave so much for signing the letter to Congress, because having him on that letter was really such an important moment, because it told so many other artists, oh, I better be paying attention to this. Oh yeah, if all these clubs go under, I have no place to play. I won't be able to get off the couch and get on a bus. And it's such, you know, the 930 Club and all the other independent places that are really part of the music ecosystem. And that this is where a kid like Dave Grohl gets to go in and then decides that's what I want to be when I grow up. And no stars start in stadiums. They start in places like the 930 Club, or the Exit Inn in Nashville, or the Troubadour in Los Angeles, and I could go on and on. But it's a moment where we've all come together and worked so hard to lobby Congress, and we're close. We have an actual bill that has been put forward in the House of Representatives, but now what we need is for the Secretary Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi to come together on an overall bill. That's getting too nerdy, but you asked what people can do. They can go to saveourstages.com and in 30 seconds tell their elected officials that they care about this. And please, because it's not only important for people who love music and musicians, it's important for their local community, because we're the economic renewal for their towns once the world does open up. And they can do things like buy gift cards to their favorite venues, because that shows that you care about the place and you're going to be there when they're able to open up, and this can help them in the meantime. Those are just a couple of things that they can do.
You know, there's merch you can buy from clubs too. There's live streams coming from clubs that you can pay to go watch the live stream. That supports the club. Mm-hmm. You know, there's GoFundMe for a lot of clubs, like fund the hell out of these clubs. They're everything. These are, you know, I called this, the piece I wrote for Pollstar, it's called The Other National Monument. The Other Washington Monument, excuse me, I misquoted my headline. But this is a monument. These are monuments. These places have history and culture and are so rich, and we can't lose them. They are our national resources. It's that dire and that important. So
the challenge has been, you know, with Congress and the public and everything, is to get them to understand the money and the work that goes into this, because I think they look at us like, oh, and, you know, they're musicians, they're rock stars. Why, you know, they don't need our help. But, you know, we've been successful at creating this escapism, this club where you go in and you don't think about the business side of it. So they're not supposed to. They're supposed to go in and leave the world behind, and it's all about the music. And now we've unfortunately had to make everyone aware about the reality of the nuts and bolts of this, which I feel bad about. It's, sausage making, but unfortunately we've had to explain this to the world. Like, these people, they barely make money, and now they're in, it's real trouble. It's a shame, but
the great thing is, though, and unfortunately we did have to tell that story. We didn't want to, we just wanted to let people come on and have fun, but this pandemic made us have to stop and tell the world how our business works. And now they get our impact on their community, because for every dollar spent at a small music venue, $12 of economic activity results for area businesses. So that means the restaurant and the pub and the hotel near us depend on us for their livelihoods. So that made it a nonpartisan issue. And I'm glad to say that we have now more than 160 co-sponsors on the Save Our Stages Act, which is, considering we didn't exist in April, it's freaking phenomenal. And people get it. So,
I work at Pollstar. It's the center of the live business. What's so gratifying is that all anybody ever talks about is, when is the live business coming back? That's across party lines. Like, everybody's peak life experience is at a show. Like, that's one of them. There's lots of peak experiences, but shows are hands down. That's going to be a peak life. You ask people your thing. It was like, oh, I saw Brain Damage when I was 15. And they were on Fart Blossom, and that was a moment in my life. But seriously though, it's this is everything, and everybody's looking at this industry and saying, we're a barometer. There were 21,000 fans at AT&T Stadium for a Cowboys game the weekend before, and that's great. I mean, hopefully it's safe and nobody got hurt, and that happened, and that is promising signs. And if we can establish these best practices and people can get back to playing safely, God bless. This is what has to happen. So, and any economic aid before then, by all means, this is everything. This is like, this is what America friggin' is.
Yeah. On a selfish note, these clubs going down. My main source of income is gigging. I teach and I do guitar repair, but my main, I'm still in the trenches. I'm still playing like 4 bands, and I'm still playing in small clubs.
King Soul, greatest R&B soul thing ever right now. Go see them. You're playing at the VFW in Palmer Park. Let people know that shit.
Thanks. It's a fun band to be in. But my last gig was at the VFW in Tacoma Park, and that was on March 12th. And I'm out of dough. The only reason I have money now is I was lucky enough to have a song in an HBO show that I had the writing credits and the publishing rights to.
Wow.
And that's keeping me afloat.
I'm sorry. But I was going to say,
that's the only thing. Otherwise, there's like people out there like me who need the clubs, not just for the entertainment to go. I love going to clubs, love going to see shows, but it's my income too.
Well, nobody, if you've ever seen Dave, and I'm sure everybody has, enjoys being on stage more than Dave. Dave, you got to be going nuts.
I am. No, it's been okay. I mean, I fortunately have other things that I work on here and there, and films and documentaries, and then I can, I just learned how to record drums by myself in my house and then send drum tracks to other people. So I'm basically like, I'm a drummer for hire that doesn't charge money. And my friends will call and say, hey, can you put the drum track on this? And I'll be like, okay, and I'll send them a drum track, put a drum track. But no, I mean, I think, what happens is, I wrote an article for The Atlantic about this, about the return to live music. And when I talked to Jeff Goldberg, the editor, he said, hey, will you write a thing about returning to the stage? But not necessarily from an audience perspective, like maybe more from a musician's perspective. So I said, okay. So I started writing it, but and I talked about my experience as an audience member and how that inspired and influenced my experience as a person on the stage. But the article was more about the human need to connect with other people, and to feel like you belong, or to feel like community, or to feel like whatever it is. We've all been to shows where you've got your arm around someone you've never met before, and you're singing the same song, or you're you're in a crowd full of people and you're all dancing together. And it's hard to imagine those things happening right now because of the pandemic and the situation that we're in. But it's not hard to understand why you do it. So, you know, to me, the smaller music venues and the ones that are really struggling, I mean, to me, they're not only culturally important, they're like really emotionally important. You know, my daughter, I have a 14-year-old kid, and we'll go driving down Sunset Boulevard. I live in Los Angeles. We go driving down Santa Monica, and we'll pass the Troubadour, and she'll be like, "Dad, don't let the Troubadour die." And I'm like, for real? She's 14. And even she understands it. I mean, she's a Bowie freak and she shaved her eyebrows, so she's already pretty cool. But she gets it. Like she really understands it. And I think that's the thing. Look, it's hard to explain what we're talking about to someone that's never experienced it, but to experience it once is to understand it for the rest of your life. So to bring it to a room full of people, whether it's politicians or businessmen, like if they've been there, they get it. If not, you just have to convince them, like, this is human nature. Like, this is an emotional need for human beings to connect with each other and grow these communities that foster the next generation of musicians. Like, so that I see it like that. I mean, I'm terrible. I'm not good at business, and a lot of the stuff with Audrey, like I'm learning so much from you about how this whole thing goes down. But there's the one thing that I really understand is the emotional need for these places to be there, so that when my kid's 16 years old, she'll get a record deal at the 930 Club by someone that saw her play, and she'll put out a record on Fart Blossom, and then she'll, whatever, that's how things happen. And they happen in places like the 930 Club.
Yeah.
So if I want to pop in just for a second, because of all the people on this call, Kareem is the one who works in the club every day under normal circumstances. We all work in different offices.
Don't forget that. Kareem is a rapper. Also, he has
so
a good.
I want to know for Kareem what this has been like for you, not going in every day.
Oh, wow. I would just have to, piggyback off of what Dave said a lot about the whole experience of just, dealing with the patrons and the people who come to see the music. Why else would people line up 3 hours early to come to a show and have a line around the block anticipating the doors opening so they can come and see their favorite band? It never gets old. And once they get in the building, you see the excitement, you see the anticipation, you're scanning their tickets and checking their IDs, and, they're going to the bars and everybody's getting situated and jockeying for space and trying to figure out where they're going to stand, in order to see the band. And you see this over and over again, but it doesn't get tiring. It doesn't get old. And it's just that atmosphere of when folks get together, as Dave said, favorite band on the stage. You may not know this person from Adam. You may not ever talk to them again in life. But I always say music is that grand equalizer. It levels everything. And when people are together in a room and their favorite band is playing and they're singing and the lights are up and it's just, and they're rocking out, it never gets old. That's one of the things that when you go to work, you have that to look forward to every day. From a crowd control perspective, from a manager's perspective, it's like the best background music you'll ever have in your life when you're sitting doing paperwork and there's some band on stage and they're really getting into it and the crowd is cheering and everything is going on. And, you're plugging away on the computer, but this band is in your ear. And it's like, it's the best background music you could ever have. And you pop up and you walk around the venue and you check on the staff and you check on the other bands and make sure everyone's good and just take a look at the stage and, just watch that whole dynamic play out. And, I miss it tremendously, but I also just walking the streets know that everyday citizens miss it too. Like, music is such an integral part of people's lives, every day and every moment.
The soundtrack.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And people can tell you where they were when a particular song came out or when they heard it on the radio the first time, or, I knew exactly what I was doing when I heard it for the first time. I was at my sister's wedding and it was in September on a Tuesday and blah, blah, blah. So they can make all of those points and connect all of those dots. So just walking the streets and be like, man, I can't wait till you guys open, man. I miss it. you know, when you guys open it back up. And I'm like, man, you know, I wish we could open today, you know, but just keep your fingers crossed, you know, and pray for venues like us and those all around the country and the world who just want to get back to, you know, the process of sharing that gift of music with the people of the world. That's what we need to get back to, because it's therapeutic too. People need it. They really need it. It helps people sort out their lives. It helps people relieve stress. It helps people just get off that angst that they get throughout the week from just going to work and living life. That music it's healing energy. It really is.
Medicine.
I want to get back to it.
Medicine.
Thank you.
Man, I got to turn the video off. I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I know.
There was a time in my life I need it.
It's true though. I mean, now more than ever with like just the culture of what's happening in the United States, it's like, it would be the time where everybody wants to turn to go see a live show and just feel that togetherness and feel that like you leave everything at the door and you're just there and you're sweating with everybody and you're singing every word and it's just like pure bliss. Like it's a high just to be a part of like bringing that to people and being a part of it as well.
So here's a fun fact about Jen that people don't know.
Hold on, Audrey. Jen, I want to ask you, and we're going to wind down because we're getting the thumbs, like we got a few minutes, but Jen, you're the booker. What are you doing these days? Are you pushing back shows? When are they starting to come back? When are we seeing your calendar?
Oh man. I have probably rescheduled.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I have probably rescheduled shows 5-6 times at this point. I'll always remember when we had with Donna and everybody had a meeting right in March when this was starting to kick off and we were like, okay, we have to cancel everything in March. And we were like, oh shit, sorry about my language. But we're like, okay, we have to do this. We have to change 8 months of work in a week. And we were pushing everything back to the summer. And then from there, a couple of weeks passed by, we have to push everything into the fall. I feel like it's just been this constant, you know, it's just rescheduling at this point. And everybody, you can feel the weight, like talking to the agents, talking to the managers, being like, we just want to get back, but we care about safety. We want to do this the right way. But it's hard.
Groundhog Day.
We did a survey.
It is every day.
Pollstar had a state of the industry survey. Everybody should check out. That's awesome. But a lot of the agents felt it was going to be, the majority of people said 2021. And then they said third, fourth quarter was when they were looking at the most. But they also, some said 2022, some said quarter.
Stop it.
Is your calendar, you have like tentative dates in the third and fourth quarter? Seth, what are you seeing?
I mean, you know, like she said, at first it was like, you know, my wife said, it's 2 weeks, you'll deal with it, okay, in March. It's 2 weeks out of your life. You know, we got to flatten the curve. And I said, yeah, but what happens, you know, at the end of that 2 weeks? If things are better, they're going to say, keep going. If things are bad, they're going to say, well, we got to keep going. It's just, and then it got to be a month. And then they started moving dates on Jen to like August. I was like, August? What the fuck is wrong with these people? They're panicking. And then it was like, you know, now they want December? No, don't even give them dates. And like 2021, what? And now when I start seeing 2022 on checking dates, I'm like, that's fucking 2 years from now. What are these people nuts? You know, what's wrong with them?
Elton's third quarter, right? Elton's coming back.
All right, let me tell you what's going to happen. And fuck Mark Geiger, by the way. Let me tell you what's going to happen. We're going to get a vaccine soon, whenever. And once that happens,
the Oracle,
and they let us open, it's going to go boom. Okay, everyone's going to want to get on tour. And all these people that moved their dates to the end of 21 even, forget about 22, they're all going to want to move back. They're all going to be like, we can work now? Really? Can we get our date back from like June? Seriously? People are going to want to go out and play. Everyone's going to be like, fuck it, let's play now. When can we get out? How soon can we get out? And it's going to go boom. Now there's going to be people that are going to be afraid to get in, you know, a big crowd. And that's okay. Stay home. We'll sell tickets to everybody else. But I got to tell you, man, I never, you know, I've been doing this my whole life, 40 years, as we've just talked about. And I really never, it's been such a part of my life, I never thought how much I would miss this. It just fucking kills me.
Man, I went to a drive-in with Fitz and the Tantrums, who are, you know, a great band, and I cried. I couldn't believe how great.
Fuck that shit. I'm waiting for the real thing.
I know. I'm gonna cry the first show back for sure.
I have my my custom earplugs, and I don't know if you can see them here.
That's kind of going
weird.
Oh, it's her middle finger. You can't tell.
When Dave reopens the anthem, it's gonna be.
I have one too.
Here we go.
You just wait. That's gonna be one heck of a show.
Here's final question here. There were 3 moments in 930 history that I think were just, when I interviewed a lot of you for the story, I got different stories, but I want to know what people's favorites are. One was the Beastie Boys were late coming up from New York City. It was raining. It was miserable. It was like 2 a.m. They were so bad. They bought pizza for the whole friggin' right? That was one story. Second story I heard a lot of, Adele plays. Oh my God, Adele. But ticketing, there was scam tickets all over the place. Hundreds of scam tickets. You couldn't let them in. You guys felt so bad for them. You let them sit outside of the stage door to listen to the show.
And I saw the dorky kid in the hallway to her dressing room that was the opening act, Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that's good. Who is that? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. Then the third story is Moby plays, and the electricity goes out. And then he does like an acoustic jam on stage with just percussion and doing whatever Moby does. And like everybody's clapping. And then the show ends and everybody leaves. And then the electricity comes back on. And then your staff is chasing down people before they get on the subway or whatever. Show, and Moby plays.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was
but
before
this
the
just hit about
Obama-
live music. It's you don't know what's going to happen. This is the wonderful thing. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to be the next big act. You don't know, and this is what's so exciting about it. You can't beat it.
Well, it shows 930 that you guys, you don't give an F. You know, like you're going to let people stay late and eat pizza, or you're going to chase people down in the subway, or
we want to create these memories. That's our thing. You know, it's like Kareem talking about there. I'm so proud of what he said, because that's what we're here for. That's our goal. That's what I think has kept us going, is because people like Kareem, you know, they're our lifers, they're our family, they're the people, you know, we try to fill up our staff, you know, and keep people like him, because that's who we want working for us.
I think the staff, considering I'm patting myself in the back here, I personally played at the club 96 times.
Oh my God.
Every day when you do the math on it.
So,
that's a lot of pizza.
It is a lot of pizza. It is.
So, you know, the staff there is just stellar. Always has been. It's always been a great crew. Everybody on stage, everybody in hospitality, everybody, all the booking people through the years that I've, you know, been involved with the club.
Very
even
professional.
Tiny little clubs when Seth was booking it, you know, everybody has just been great, and that's why people want to come back and play there, and that's why you treat the patrons great, you treat the bands great.
Well, here's the thing about that, if I have a minute. The thing about the club and any venue we do is there's 2 sides to the stage, right? And that moment when the band goes on, and there's nothing more exciting than that. And to get to that moment and to make it great, both sides of that stage have to be in the best mood, be happy, want that magic. So you got to make sure the audience is in a great mood, the band's in a great mood, like Mark just said. And that's how you do it. I mean, that gives you your best shot. And when you create that great moment, you give people these life memories that you want to shoot for, giving people the best show they ever saw every night. I mean, that's what it's all about. So that's what we shoot for.
Or just go see Trouble Funk, man. That's all. Just go see.
Yeah,
there you go.
that's all you need.
Come on now.
There you go.
Tony, how many times you played for us?
Man, you know what? I thought we had the record until I heard about Slicky Boys, you know? I know.
Well, I just want to point
We
something
just
out.
got to pick it back up.
Tony's played a lot. Mark's played a lot. They've both let me play drums. I don't want to say coincidence.
I haven't put you in their band, Seth. You should know that by now.
One of the things I do miss, I just want to put this in quickly. When I first started working security and became one of the heads of security, I was doing hospitality at the same time. So Saturdays was the day that I usually ran the floor and ran the door. And every year, I had the privilege of doing Chuck Brown's birthday celebration. Woo. And I think his birthday was August 22nd, so it just passed last month. And just to see everybody come out for that, you know, and I'm sure Big Tony can attest to that, about how everybody came together to celebrate him, but he was in his element always, you know, and just to see him stand up there and just play and play and play. I'm like, does this man ever get tired? You know, even towards the end where, you know, a lot of us didn't even know he was ill, he would stand up and play and you wouldn't know it because he was just so happy and just so thrilled to be able to just play and just see all of his children, because they call him Pop, around him and just continue, to push that legacy. So I miss that because it was always on a Saturday, and that was the day that I ran the floor, and just to have all of that happen and just see that history all the time, it was amazing, man.
But do you remember, I have a globe poster of this, the Godfather of Soul meets the Godfather of Go-Go.
Oh,
Yeah, Chuck Brown opened for James Brown.
I remember that.
You know that was.
That's sick.
Wow.
That's crazy. I love Chuck Brown Avenue opened up near the 930 Club, right? Isn't it off of 16th or Georgia or something? That's cool. All right, you guys, I just want to say thank you all so very much for showing up to this. Save Our Stages, right, Audrey? SaveOurStages.com.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. And thank you for treating us so kindly over the years. Andy gets us, I have to say.
Music, man. Thank you all. Lots of love.
Thanks
Take care, everybody.
Love
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.